This is the Lightning Junkies podcast with your host, Chaz Cryptoson. On this episode of the podcast, we have Roy Sheinfeld from Breez Technologies. A good portion of this episode is spent talking about something that is very important to the ecosystem, as we'll need a great deal of liquidity in order to onboard users onto the network. As we talk about in the podcast, Roy says that we'll need services like Breez that act as LSPs or Lightning service providers, onboarding new users and allowing them to transact on the network using their Bitcoin. This episode of the podcast is slightly different than others. I'm going to mainly skip the whole self-sponsorship thing and just try to jump straight into the episode. So if you do want to sponsor the show, you can see how to do that in the show notes. But other than that, let's go ahead and jump into the episode. I would like to go ahead and welcome Roy to the Lightning Junkies podcast. How are you doing this evening, Roy?
I'm doing very well. How are you, Chaz?
I'm doing pretty well. Thanks for asking. Really glad that you're on the podcast. Kind of just starting out, I just, interested in knowing your general background. Before you got into Bitcoin, what were you doing? What were you up to?
I was actually in an entirely different domain. I was the CTO and co-founder of a company in the enterprise collaboration business. So I've been a software developer and a product manager for almost 20 years now in the Israeli high-tech industry. I moved a lot between different companies, but in my last company, the company that I founded, I served as the CTO. I was about 10 years, and we've built enterprise software for very large organizations all over the world. But I was monitoring the Bitcoin industry from afar. I have actually invested in Bitcoin in late 2013, and I've been following the development in Bitcoin ever since. And when I left my previous company, I've decided to do something to help Bitcoin become a real currency. And that's why I founded Breez.
Got it. Okay, so before we jump into the whole Breez portion, I wanted to take a step back here. What made you actually purchase Bitcoin in 2013? What was the story there?
The story was very simple. I read Satoshi's white paper. And as a technical person, I fell in love with the technology. I knew there was something there. I didn't know if Bitcoin is going to succeed from a commercial standpoint or not, but the technology got me hooked into Bitcoin.
Okay. Do you want to maybe elaborate a bit more? What about the technology specifically? What use cases did you kind of see pop into your head, etc.?
The genius idea on how to solve the double spend issues. That's all. I think everyone that reads what Satoshi has composed understand that there's something genius about it.
Yeah, definitely. I would agree with that. I guess I was just curious. In 2013, you bought Bitcoin. How did it progress from there? What were the steps kind of leading up to you starting Breez?
So as I was saying, I was following the Bitcoin industry from afar, monitoring the advancement in Bitcoin and also read the Lightning Network white paper back in the day. As a technical product manager, my skills are around the technical product management. I saw that there were still gaps in bringing this technology to market, and I thought that we could help with the adoption of Bitcoin in mainstream, to bring Bitcoin to mainstream users.
Got it. And so that's what you found interesting about Lightning, that it was maybe like the best chance of being able to mainstream Bitcoin to users, like you were saying?
Exactly. So with Lightning, I think what my passion is, what we wanted to do is to use Bitcoin as a currency, right? To use Bitcoin in the real world, to purchase stuff, to pass Bitcoin between friends. That's the Bitcoin is really peer-to-peer electronic cash. And with Lightning, we saw an opportunity that that Bitcoin can deliver on its promise finally. But at the same time, we saw how complicated it still is. to do that on top of Lightning. So Lightning is a great infrastructure, but we saw a room for improvement in bridging the gap from technology to real life usage. So that why I started Breez, to somehow bridge this gap.
Definitely. We'll definitely get to Breez here in a moment, I promise. Okay, so what was your, maybe early usage of Lightning like? I mean, when did you actually begin using it on the mainnet?
I think it was the second half of 2017 when we started playing. Me and my partner, as I brought two friends with me to this journey. We started looking at the different implementation. We took a look at C Lightning. We took a look at LND. We took a look at Eclair. So we were playing, setting up stuff on all these three implementations.
Okay. And so you started Breez. Do you want to give a very brief reason why you really felt that Breez was needed in the marketplace versus the other wallets that you just listed out?
So when we started Breez, the only way to use Lightning for mobile devices was to connect to your own node. And for us, the key to adoption was mobile. And we saw we saw that the way to bring Bitcoin to the masses is through mobile devices. And we wanted to create another type of Lightning client, a Lightning client that is in its user experience is on par with Fiat, actually. So it would be like a seamless user experience. The user would only need to install the app and everything would just work. That's the experience that we were aiming for. That's the reason we started Breez, is to bring a seamless experience, a seamless Lightning experience in mobile clients without the need of the user to set up his own full node. So we started playing with LND and Neutrino. We've optimized Neutrino to run on mobile devices. We actually ported LND to be used as a library, and we ran LND in a light node mode using Neutrino on Android devices. So we started with Android.
Got it. Okay. I definitely like how Breez makes things very simple in the UX. One of those, I think, is keeping everything as one particular balance. Do you want to go into that a bit more?
Sure. So there are different ideas that we brought into Breez because we again the goal, the aim of what we were doing was to bring a seamless user experience to Lightning, but maintaining all the core Bitcoin values. We didn't want to create a custodial solution. We wanted to keep everything non-custodial and to maintain the core Bitcoin values of being censorship resistant and so on. The idea was to create a Neutrino light node running on the mobile device, and the user will have a very easy, simple user experience. So one of the issues, as you said, was to create a single balance. So how do you create a single balance in Lightning when you have an on-chain wallet and an off-chain wallet? So we've decided, and Breez was actually the first client to use a Submarine Swap. We actually decided to have a Lightning only client and not to deal with on-chain stuff, but to focus only on the off-chain experience, to expose only Lightning. And actually, the experience is Breez from an end user standpoint. All the Lightning terminology and all the Lightning semantics are obfuscated from the user. The user sees a balance, the user can send money, the user can receive money, but everything is kind of plug and play. There's no Lightning semantics. The user doesn't need to know how to set up channel and so on. When the user installs Breez, we actually open a channel to the user, allowing the user to receive funds immediately, providing the user inbound capacity. The user can top up his wallet using different methods. He can buy Bitcoin using a credit card. He can use vouchers to redeem the vouchers in Breez in order to top up the wallet. But you can also use a Submarine Swaps. So we provide an on-chain address to the user, and we actually convert the on-chain transaction to an off-chain transaction using Submarine Swap service that we provide.
Okay, so I think most people probably know what a submarine swap is, but do you just want to give a brief explanation of what that is for maybe any listeners that don't know what that is?
Sure. So a submarine swap is a mechanism where you can tie an on-chain transaction to an off-chain transaction, meaning it's a script address, and the script defines the receiver of the money. The receiver of the funds can redeem the funds only if the receiver has executed an off-chain transaction. So in the case of Breez, for example, we provide an on-chain address, and the user creates this with a submarine swap script. It's kind of work. It's a very similar way. It works in a very similar manner to a Lightning transaction, where there's an HTLC process where the user sends the funds, and the recipient can redeem the fund only if it has the secret, the pre-image that the user provides. And the user provides the pre-image only if the recipient of the funds has executed an on-chain transaction. If the recipient didn't execute an off-chain transaction, then there's a time block, and the sender of the funds can redeem the funds after the time block expires. So it's a trustless process that ties an on-chain transaction to an off-chain transaction.
Got it. Thanks for going into that for me. And then something else you had mentioned in there was the fact you give all of your new users incoming capacity by tying up some, Bitcoin and some channels there. Something that I've heard quite a bit on the podcast from other interview guests is that this is not something that is sustainable long term. What are your thoughts on how long something like that can last and what you're doing to kind of mitigate the need for you guys to put up that kind of money?
I heard that feedback as well. So basically what Breez is doing, we call it an LSP. Breez is a Lightning service provider, and we provide inbound liquidity to end users as a Lightning service provider. I think there are two missing components for the success of Lightning. One is a client, is an app, a user experience that is seamless to end users. But there's also a missing component. There's a need for a service that will plug the user seamlessly to the Lightning network. We call it an LSP, a Lightning service provider, exactly like there's an internet service provider. Currently, what we do, we provide this service for free, and we're the only one. Well, actually, we're not the only one that does it. Other services have followed our footsteps and are providing inbound liquidity as well. So if you take a look at companies like SparkSwap or the Olympus service by Zap, they are also providing inbound liquidity. They are doing that once the user buys Bitcoin from them, but they're also providing inbound liquidity. So in regards to long-term vision, we don't want to be the only Lightning service provider. Companies like Bitrefill, companies like SparkSwap, services like Olympus are also Lightning service providers. And we're actually going to open Breez to additional Lightning service providers, so the user will be able to pick and choose their Lightning service provider. So I think liquidity is a key component to the success of Lightning. We demonstrated that liquidity attracts users, and users once they are hooked into the Lightning network, they're starting to use the Lightning network, and actually you can make money out of this user because they're starting to spend their Bitcoins. For me, by the way, there's not an issue in locking up Bitcoins because I don't want to convert my Bitcoins to fiat regardless. So as a Bitcoiner, as a hodler even, I don't understand the criticism, because I can take my Bitcoins and I can put it. Think about it long term. How in a Bitcoin economy, how would you make money out of Bitcoin? Because in a Bitcoin based economy, whereas there's a circular economy of Bitcoin, the only way to make, or one of the few ways to make money out of Bitcoin, is actually to use them and to lock them in the Lightning Network, because you can make money out of transaction fees in this case. There's not many ways to make money out of Bitcoin in a Bitcoin based economy. So for me, when you say I'm locking up my Bitcoin, I'm actually not locking up my Bitcoin. I'm holding my Bitcoin and I'm making more Bitcoin using my Bitcoins.
Okay, a fair point, but I guess maybe a nuance that I would bring up is having an on-demand channel for your user and having, what you're doing with Breez and having kind of automatic incoming liquidity that's not bounded by anything.
Of course, there's way to optimize our service. So we actually are closing channels. Not all of our channels are remaining open. We monitor the usage of the channel, and if the channel is not being used, we're closing the channel and freeing up the bitcoins for other users. The fact that we're doing that when the user used the app for the first time, that might change. And with additional services like Bitrefill or Olympus or other liquidity provider, we might do that when the user actually top up the wallet for the first time instead of the first installation. And also, no one says it's going to remain free forever. We might charge for this service as well.
Okay, so do you want to maybe give me a picture of what that might look like if you did, choose to make it non-free in the future?
I think it will look very similar to the way Bitrefill are providing their Thor service. So you will buy the channel. And with the enhancement in Lightning, it can even be a subscription license. Personally, I think it's too early to see how it's gonna evolve. I think there are very nice vendors, very great players out there that are in the space right now of providing liquidity. Services like Olympus, services like Spark Swap, services like Bitrefill. So not sure Breez is going to be a player as a liquidity provider. Maybe not. We'll see. We're mainly focused on the user experience of Lightning. We're focused on how to bring Lightning user experience in the most seamless manner to the end user. And actually, since we've started opening channels for our users, a lot of vendor had followed. So we're changing the paradigm here. The less burden there is on the user to join the Lightning Network, we contribute to the Lightning network success. And that's our goal.
Okay, makes a lot of sense. So if we take the kind of inbound liquidity feature off the table, what other kind of features do you think would keep Breez relevant to users? And I guess maybe even in that particular case, how would you guys make revenue, if at all?
The fact that again, I'm still undecided whether we're gonna maintain our LSP service, but we're certainly gonna be an LSP platform, allowing users to connect to different LSPs. So I think that's an area that we're working on, and I think there's a long way to go to have a user experience that is on par with fiat. This is the stuff that we're mostly working on and we're mostly focusing on. For example, currently when you install Breez, there's a certain latency because you need to sync up with the chain. We're going to optimize that and provide very fast onboarding experience. We're going to provide fast payments as well. So you won't need to wait for on-chain sync in order to execute that payment. We're going to support zero confirmation channels. We're going to support AMP. We're going to support trampoline payments. we just released a protocol called the Lightning Rod to allow asynchronous payments using Lightning. This is a huge innovation from Breez. Release a non-custodial point of sale solution for mobile devices as well. So the list is very long in terms of innovation. I think we brought a lot of innovation to the market with this LSP concept, with Submarine Swaps, with the concept of connect to pay, where you can send your friend a link and you are both entering a payment session, and it's very easy to exchange payments using Breez. And we're going to continue to innovate as we go.
Okay, I definitely like the sound of all that. Would you say that Breez is much more of a wallet for a maybe more of a newbie user versus a more OG Bitcoiner, etc.?
No, I wouldn't say that. I think there's a different expectation from newbies and from OGs, as you say. I think we are focusing on a seamless experience, but it doesn't mean advanced users are not getting it, and it doesn't mean we are not providing enough, let's say, power to end user. Because, for example, we're the only client that provide you with like a developer screen where all the LN CLI commands are available to you. So as an advanced user, actually, I think we're the most advanced client as well. It's not like maintaining your own node, but you have full control over your Light node in your mobile device, which is great.
So let's go ahead and move on from Breez specifically for the moment. And I kind of wanted to move on to the topic of how a wallet, whether it be a Bitcoin wallet or a Lightning wallet, might monetize themselves.
By the way, I don't really like the term wallet because I think it makes sense in the on-chain world, less sense in the Lightning world because it's not just a wallet. A wallet is kind of representative of the client side, not necessarily the server side. When you're speaking about Lightning, it's actually a Lightning payment service because there's also a component on the server side that allows you to execute the payment. So as an LSP, the fact that Breez provides an inbound liquidity, it's not just inbound liquidity, it provides a routing node that is connected to other routing nodes in the network. Rebalances the liquidity with this other node in order to be a successful routing node. And it connects and actively connects to additional hubs in the network. So wallet is, I don't think it's a very good description of the service that we provide. So in regards to monetization, there are different ways where we think a Lightning payment service can monetize itself. One is by upselling. So for example, Breez provides a marketplace inside the app where users can spend their Bitcoins and they can purchase Bitcoin, they can purchase products using their Bitcoins. Breez it takes a cut out of every purchase made via Breez, and it's a way to monetize the client. Another way to monetize is by providing fiat to Bitcoin conversion services. So there's fiat to Bitcoin, Bitcoin to fiat. Every time that the user wants to transfer funds, to convert funds from fiat to Bitcoin, Breez can take a cut. The third monetization, the third revenue stream, let's say, is by providing this routing node slash watchtower slash Lightning Road services. So there are different services in the Lightning network that the user needs to pay in order to get them. Currently, users are familiar with the fact that a routing node takes a fee out of every payment through the Lightning Network. But there will be other Lightning services like Watchtower and like the Road, for example. The Road is our notion of a relay node that synchronize payments asynchronously. There will be services around the graph, the Lightning Graph. So there will be services around messaging. So we think we'll be able to monetize users by providing them high quality Lightning services. Currently, it's around the routing nodes, but as the Lightning economy matures, there will be additional services. Another way to monetize is through merchant services. A lot of companies are focused on providing merchants with the ability to transact using Lightning. OpenNode, for example. But what we want to do, we want to create a client, a point of sale client, which is specifically tailored to merchants, and we believe we'll be able to monetize this client as well.
Got it. Those are a lot of different ways to monetize. Okay.
I think speaking generally, sorry to cut you, just generally speaking, I think our goal is to move people from fiat to Lightning. And once you move enough funds, enough money from fiat to Lightning, monetization won't be an issue.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So I guess, the way that you said that kind of made me jump to a topic that I like to bring up constantly on the podcast. And that's the idea of onboarding people directly onto Lightning and kind of skipping over base chain Bitcoin. Do you have any opinion about that?
Yeah. I'm a great advocate for fiat to Lightning services. So I think the work that Jack is doing with the Olympus platform, the work that Iterative Capital are doing with the Etcher platform, I think it's the work that Trey is doing with SparkSwap. I think these services are going to be great. They're going to be huge and going to help people onboard directly from fiat to the Lightning economy. So definitely this is something that you're going to see in Breez as well. We're going to provide fiat to Lightning onboarding as well.
Do you think it makes sense on a philosophical basis to onboard newbies directly onto Lightning, or should we be grounding them in the Bitcoin ethos and making sure they understand what confirmations are and da 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 da?
I believe I don't know. I don't like really the differentiation between newbies and non-newbies. I don't know what a newbie is. For me, if I can provide a trust minimized solution, and to keep the user in control over her funds, I think that's my goal. Newbie or not, I want to provide a decentralized service, a trust minimized service, where the user is in control over her funds. That's my goal. So for me, Lightning and Bitcoin are not different. For me, a Lightning transaction is a Bitcoin transaction. I think ultimately most of the Bitcoin transactions can be executed on top of the Lightning Network without going to the chain, and the chain can remain the judge in case of a dispute. But I don't see a difference between Lightning and Bitcoin. Lightning is an extension of Bitcoin.
Okay, I would definitely agree with that. Do you see the future of Bitcoin essentially just being Lightning transactions or possibly other layer 2 transactions?
I think a lot of transaction. I can't put a number, but let's go with the Pareto model of 80-20. I would say 80% of the transaction there's no need for them to be settled on chain. So I'm a great believer in Lightning. I think most of the transaction there's no need for them to go to be published to the chain. But we need a chain. The chain is important for having the Lightning infrastructure. I'm not dismissing the importance of the chain. On the contrary, but if we want to have a scalable global payment payment system, I think the importance of a layer 2 is huge.
I have a silly question, so please excuse me. Would you call yourself a Lightning maximalist?
With the different, I don't know what the Bitcoin maximalist is, to be honest, because I see people, for example, I saw some tweets yesterday about Andreas that is not a Bitcoin maximalist. So if Andreas is not a Bitcoin maximalist, I don't know what a Bitcoin maximalist is. But I'm a believer in Lightning, so you can say I'm a Lightning maximalist.
Okay, that was just a kind of dorky question. I apologize to you and my listeners.
No, that's okay. It's a matter of definition. What a maximalist is, I'm a Lightning purist, you can say, not a maximalist.
Okay, fair enough. All right. I wanted to go a bit more broad with our talk here and just kind of talk you more about broad Lightning questions here.
Of course.
You've been developing Breez for quite a while now. Were there any challenges in developing on Lightning? And if so, what were the biggest ones off the top of your head?
No, I wouldn't say there are challenges. You mean in terms of the development environment and so on? I don't think Lightning is much different than any other development environment. I think the issues that bringing Lightning in a simple way to the end user, the product stuff are challenging. Less the development. Once you know how you want something to be implemented, then it's fairly easier to implement. But taking this concept and delivering a simple product, I think I would say that are our biggest challenges.
Okay, and then on the flip side of that, what do you see as being, maybe some strong features of Lightning that make it stand out versus other cryptocurrencies, fiat, etc.?
I don't know. I'm not an expert in other cryptos. I'm not to be. I'm not not very familiar with many cryptocurrencies. I know Bitcoin. I love Bitcoin, so I'm not dealing with other shitcoins. So for me, it's only Bitcoin and only Lightning at the moment.
Sure, but I guess what I'm asking is, was there anything about Lightning specifically that the features that it offers that makes it good for the kind of goals that you're trying to accomplish here?
Well, again, the goal is very simple: is to provide a scalable payment system, and it's very easy to understand that Lightning, with its inherent scalability, is the right mechanism. I think a lot of people don't understand that Lightning is a work in progress. Take a step back. A year ago, where Lightning was, we didn't have Lightning on mobile devices. We didn't have features like the Submarine Swaps, the autopilot, the watchtowers, LApps, LNURL. All this stuff didn't exist a year ago. In a year, Lightning will be something completely different with AMP in trampoline payments and Wamble channel and maybe messaging, and with our Lightning Road, Lightning will be something completely different, better. For us, we see Lightning as the right infrastructure. We see the infrastructure evolves. The ecosystem is great. We're using LND, and I think the way Lightning Labs are nurturing the ecosystem and nurturing the wallet developers is great. There's an open communication channel with them, and they're focusing on building an ecosystem which allows companies like Breez to innovate. But not only Breez, you can see other companies like Moon or like Zap are also using their infrastructure very successfully. So I think the open culture of Lightning, you can see the active discussions on the mailing list and with the upcoming bolts of Bolt 12, for example, and the new innovations in regards to trampoline payments, I think it's the right, definitely the right vehicle to bring Bitcoin to the masses.
Okay, and speaking of which, what do you see the reason people actually onboard to Lightning being? What use cases do you feel like are the strongest in the short term and in the long term?
So there's this discussion about what is the Lightning killer app, right? So for me, there's no killer app for Lightning. For me, the killer app is payments. I think Lightning needs to deliver, like exactly like Bitcoin needs to deliver on its promise of being a peer-to-peer electronic cash. Lightning needs to deliver on its promise of being on providing exactly that. It needs to provide the peer-to-peer electronic cash in a very seamless manner and maintain all the core Bitcoin values of decentralization. I think if Lightning will fulfill this promise, then it will be the killer app. I think there are additional aspects to Lightning, for example, integrating messaging into Lightning, which are very cool, but they won't mean anything unless Lightning will be used as a payment service. So messages in regards to how do I execute the payment, when do I execute the payment, the negotiation around the payment is great. But I don't see Lightning as a replacement to WhatsApp. I see Lightning as a secure payment service with messaging on top of it. Same goes for LApps. I think there won't be a single LApp that is going to be the killer LApp that's going to raise the usage of Lightning. I think every service that wants to monetize itself using Lightning is an LApp. So I think we're going to see a lot of different LApps in the future, and I think Lightning will succeed. The hockey stick will come when people understand. In the next wave of Bitcoin, people will understand that Bitcoin is not only digital gold, but it's also a payment service. Then we'll see the hockey stick.
Okay, so the hockey stick here. Okay. Do you see any issues potentially coming up to, make, Lightning less useful or make, other issues that derail Lightning and force us to do something else maybe?
That's a great question. I think we need to be a bit conservative. I think we all need to realize that we're building an infrastructure that will last for years, and we need to take it slow. I don't think we need to rush anything. Some people, some vendors I think, are rushing it a bit with Wambo, for example. I don't think there's a need for Wambo right now. I think there's a lot of work to do before we get into Wambo. So my concern is that are the high expectations. I think I have a fair understanding on where Lightning is right now. I think it will take another 6 to 12 months for it to become more stable. And I wouldn't try and appeal to the masses right now. I would build it step by step, one block after the other, until we reach the point where it's stable enough to open the gates.
What do you see as being the turning point in, Lightning adoption? How we'll be able to tell that that's actually happening at any particular point?
I don't have any specific numbers in mind. I think let's take Breez, for example. I think we have a couple of thousands of users right now. I want to grow in an order of magnitude every year. That's my vision. So if I'm in thousands of users right now, I want tens of thousands next year, and I want hundreds of thousands in the 2021. That's the way I see it.
Yeah, that's very ambitious, I think. What will maybe a question I already asked, so if I already did, please let me know. But what will keep people from using Lightning in the future? Like, what's the biggest impediment to them actually adopting it and using it in the future?
I think in the future, it will be seamless to them as fiat is seamless. So I don't think people will think Lightning. I think Lightning will become a hidden infrastructure in their environment. So I don't see any roadblocks for the Lightning adoption in the future, if that's the question.
Okay. Quick little detour here. One of the more interesting, theoretical use cases of Lightning is the concept of streaming money. Are you already aware of what that is?
Well, yeah.
Okay.
I, and I think I'm not a fan,
No.
to be honest. No, because I don't think Lightning. I think people are trying to, for example, let's talk about micropayments. Okay, for me, Lightning is not about micropayments. Lightning is about payments. The fact that you can do micropayments is natural. But it's just a part of the fact that you can pay using Lightning. So you can pay using Lightning, you can do micropayments with Lightning, and you can stream payments with Lightning. But it's all just different use cases of payments. I don't think streaming money is a more important use case than paying in a store, for example.
Sure, but I guess maybe my question was just a bit more, do you have any particular opinion about that use case? Not that it's like the best one ever or anything.
I think Lightning is a great technology. I think Lightning is an enabler for different ways to interact with money. But I don't know. For example, let's say you want to pay for parking. Okay, you drive your car, you park. I don't see much difference in the user experience if you stream the payment to the parking company or you pay them when you complete the parking. So for me, I want to take the usage out of fiat and bring it to Bitcoin. I'm not necessarily want to invent new use cases for people to use Bitcoin. So streaming money for me, it's untangible at the moment.
Well, would you mind if I gave an alternative example that I think, at least to me, sounds a bit better?
Of course, go ahead.
Sure. So I guess in my case, it's like I just remember watching a video with Andreas from like 2017 where he kind of went over some example use cases, and one of them was the streaming money one. The idea was that I'd be getting paid by my employer that way. Maybe not in the short term, because I still feel like the size of channels is still too small, etc. But the idea would be, let's say I was getting paid $2,000 a month, just to make the math easy here. They would open up with a $2,000 channel with me, and then little bit by little bit, maybe hour by hour, I would get paid out on my payroll. Now I would find that a lot more useful and a lot more relevant than going and paying with my parking with streaming money, which I don't see that being a big deal at all. But what do you think about maybe the payroll side of things?
Well, for me, it's like inventing use cases for using Lightning, where I think we need to use Lightning for all use cases. I don't think people have an issue to get their salaries once a week, twice a month, or every month. I don't think that's the challenge that people are experiencing. If that's the challenge, and there are some professions where you get paid by the day, I think fiat can solve them as well. So I don't think Lightning is needed in order to stream money. You can stream money. It's not really streaming, right? If you're being paid hourly or daily, it's not really streaming.
Just going to say maybe, even more than by the hour, maybe by the minute, by the second. Do you see there being more of a use case maybe in the gig economy where you could be paid by the minute or even by the second and have it be, significant, possibly.
Again, I'm not a fan of. I'm not.
Okay, fair enough.
I'm not a fan of this use case because I think again it's an excuse to use Lightning where I think Lightning need to be used for all use cases, and the simplest use cases are to send money, to receive money. People need to use Lightning for that. Streaming is cool. Definitely, I'll tell you what it is, Chaz. When you say streaming money, and when Andreas speak about streaming money or when people talk about micropayments, it's just to show how much power there is in the platform, which is way better than fiat. And the technology cannot be stopped. And I'm sure there will be use cases for streaming money, and I'm sure there will be use cases for micropayments. For me, I think what I'm trying to focus in and what I think the ecosystem needs to be focused in right now is to solve the very basic use cases first. So for me, I want to create this experience of sending money and receiving money as simple and easy as possible for regular users.
What do you see as being the future of Lightning from where you're sitting? If all things go well, where do you think we're sitting in 5 years?
So I don't know if it's going to take 5 years or 10 years or 20 years.
Sure.
But I think Lightning will fulfill the promise of Bitcoin. And I think we're going to see the democratization of money finally. And we talked about LSPs at the beginning of the podcast. For me, there's no reason that Netflix, for example, won't be a Lightning service provider, and you'll have a direct interaction in regards to your money with Netflix, and you'll pay Netflix, you'll stream movies, and you'll pay Netflix based on the movies that you stream. All that using the Lightning Network as an infrastructure. No intermediates, no third parties. A real peer-to-peer economy using the Lightning Network. You'll receive your salary in Lightning. You'll pay at the grocery shop using Lightning. You'll watch movies using Lightning. Everything can be done. A true circular economy in Bitcoin, and Lightning Network will be the vehicle that delivers on that.
Got it. Okay.
It's a small vision.
Yeah, right?
Not that ambitious.
Agreed. So maybe one final question here before I let you go. Assuming, I'm paying for my Netflix with Lightning, will Bitcoin be, the biggest asset on the planet at that point?
Yes, there's no reason it won't gonna happen. It's not gonna happen. I think it's gonna probably be in phases. I don't think it's gonna be 100% of the economy, but I think the new generation will adopt it first. You're probably familiar with Tim Draper's vision of 20% by 2023 or 2025. I don't know what's the exact year that he put. But I think there's no reason it's not going to happen. And I think it's going to, once we'll have all the infrastructure in place, and once people understand that we can create a circular economy based on Bitcoin, and there's a tangible value to using Bitcoin, the transactions are cheaper, the transactions are faster. You don't need to pay intermediates to hold your money or to spend your money. Then I think it can boom very quickly, so we can get into high numbers very very fast. And I think there's the tipping point effect, right? When the 1% turns to 10%. I think we can get to a 10% very, very fast. Not sure what will be the pace once we reach 10%. So I don't think it's going to be 100% for even ever. But I think we can get to 10% very quickly. it's going to be probably a more linear growth. What will be the pace? I don't know. I'm not a prophet.
All right, perfect. Well, I really appreciate you joining me on the podcast. Do you want to go ahead and let the listeners know how they can find you and Breez?
Sure. So you can go ahead to and download Breez from our website, https Breez without an E, breez.technology. You can find us on Twitter, Breez_tech. You can follow us on Medium as well. We post regularly on Medium. Breez Technology on Medium. What else? We have a Telegram group. We have a GitHub. Everything is open source. I didn't know if I don't think I've mentioned that, but we would love for you to take a look at the code, to contribute, to review, to provide feedback. So you can find us at Breez on GitHub as well.
All right, perfect, Roy. Well, thank you for joining me on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Chaz.
Boom. That was the 15th episode of the Lightning Junkies podcast. Did you find out anything about Breez that you didn't know about before? Are you excited by the possibility of Netflix being a Lightning service provider? Maybe I am, maybe I'm not. Maybe eventually we'll be using Bitcoin and Lightning everywhere and we won't even give it a second thought. Like I said earlier, I wanted to try to do a different thing with this episode where I didn't really try to shill myself as much and just try to keep the beginning and end as short as possible. So in the spirit of that, I'm going to cut things off here. If you want to find out, how to support me, like I said before, you could do so in the show notes. I'll see you on the Lightning Network.